Shalom Torah fans, and welcome to episode 6 of Lessons on the Way to Sinai, Delegating Authority, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Please take your Bibles and turn to Exodus chapter 18. We are coming out of Egypt. We are heading on the way to Mount Sinai. Critical lessons on the way to Mount Sinai. First, with the parting of the Red Sea, the devouring of Pharaoh's chariots and army in the bottom of the Red Sea, when Yehovah finally gets his final glory, and the statement of Pharaoh, I do not know Yehovah, the God of Israel, neither will I let his people go. Now he has come in a death match with the Almighty, and he loses, and Yehovah now will have his name known throughout all the earth, and it is such a profound thing that even now today, after science has finally reached the point where they could do this, underwater robotic dive cameras have been sent down the bottom of the Yam Suf under 900 feet of water, strewn for over a mile and a half on the bottom of the Red Sea. The coral-encrusted remains of Pharaoh's chariots and army have been found. We have it on video. It is on our videos and on our television programs to let this be known to the entire world. And of course, the entire secular world is going to turn a blind eye to all of this, going to pretend that it really didn't happen, that we don't have any evidence. But this is for those who want to know the true God. As Yeshua said, this is the purpose of life eternal, that they might know thee, the only true God, and the Messiah whom thou hast sent. That's the purpose of eternal life. There are many of those who do not even want to get to know him now. The last place they want to be is getting to know him for all of eternity. And neither do those of us who want to get to know him for all eternity want these extras on the set, these people who don't want to know him. We don't want them cluttering up the landscape anymore. So the Almighty is going to get rid of all them and all the atheists, all those who want to deny the existence of the Almighty. One day the Almighty will deny their existence and they will be no more. And Moshe told his father-in-law all that Yehovah had done unto Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and all the travail that had come upon them along the way. So he is again repeating to him the lessons on the way to Mount Sinai and how Yehovah delivered them. And Yitro rejoiced for all the goodness which Yehovah had done to Israel, whom he had delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Yitro said, blessed be Yehovah. He didn't say, blessed be Hashem, old what's his name, or blessed be G-D. You know, he praised the name. He lifted up, he exalted the name and said, blessed be Yehovah, who hath delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh, who he delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that Yehovah is greater than all gods, for in the thing wherein he dwelt proudly, he was above them all. And this is his response to Moshe, telling him how all of these plagues in Egypt, every one of them was a specific plague against one of the gods of Egypt to show that they were absolutely powerless. And so his response is that, you know, he has indeed shown that there are no gods. All these gods are a figment of the imagination. They are invented by their priest and by the government. All these things invented by men in order to manipulate, intimidate, and control other people, in order to witchcraft them, to manipulate them into doing things they wouldn't do, because they are convincing them that these gods are reality and that they must do these things. He said, you know, it's obvious. The Almighty has proven that these gods are not gods. That's why it is so ludicrous in America that the commander-in-chief now tells us that we are no longer just a Christian nation. You know, like all these other gods are legitimate. No, they're not legitimate. There is no God such as Allah. Muhammad was no prophet. There is no elephant God with 17 arms and all this nonsense. These are manufactured gods that manipulate and control people. I mean, you know, the whole thing with Allah, this false moon god, is he's got, just an entire nations who are megalomaniacs. They want to destroy all the infidels like me. I'm an infidel, okay? Because I do not believe in this false moon god called Allah. There is no God called Allah. And Yitro is saying that. You know, here he is, a Sheikh of Midian. He says, if he were in the future, he'd say, well, that's obvious that there is no God named Allah. There is no Vishnu. There is no Krishna. There's none of these other gods out there that people created. They're not God at all. And then it says in verse 13 that it came to pass on the morrow that Moshe sat to judge the people. And the people stood by Moses from morning until the evening. And when Moshe's father-in-law saw that all that he did to the people, he said, "What are you doing? Why are you sitting here all by yourself, and all the people have to stand here from morning until evening?" And Moshe said, "Because the people come to inquire of God. Whenever they have a matter, they come to me, and I judge between one and another. And I make them know the statutes of Elohim and his laws." And Moses' father-in-law said, "What you're doing is not good. You are going to wear out both you, and you're going to wear out all these people standing in line here. This is too heavy a burden. You're not able to do this all by yourself. I will tell you in advance. You just started this, and it's not going to work. So listen to me. I'm going to give you some counsel here. And if I do, then God will be with you, and you are going to be for the people to God, okay? They come to you, and you go directly to God, so that you may bring their causes unto the Almighty. And then you will teach them ordinances and laws, and you will show them the way that they must walk and do the work that they must do." And right now, I'd like to stop for a minute, because when we talk about statutes and ordinances, people sometimes ask, well, what is this? What is the difference between this? And this is something I have written right in the opening of my Bible here. And one of the benefits of having an Oxford Bible is all the extra pages they give you and the 4 wide margins so that you can write in all the Hebrew and Greek words so that you understand. This is how judgments, testimonies, and statutes are broken down. And this is actually a teaching that was done by Rabbi Schneerson, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, which many of his followers thought and think still. Some of them still think that he's the Messiah and he's going to come up from the dead. I'll tell you, Rabbi Schneerson is not the Messiah, but he did have some great insight. He said that judgments are commandments that are compelled by human logic. Rational laws that society would keep even if the Torah had not commanded their observance. Human understanding leads us to their necessity, such as thou shalt not murder. You don't have to have the Torah in any culture for a person not to know innately that murdering somebody else is wrong. You don't do this. You do not need some kind of written Torah from heaven, from Mount Sinai, that tells men that you don't take another man's wife. You know, you just don't do it. These are judgments that human logic compels us to understand these. You don't steal something that belongs to somebody else. There's something wrong with it. And see, our Creator created all human beings with the capacity to understand judgments, and that all men will come to these things without any instruction from the Almighty. Testimonies, however, are commandments that we would never have arrived at without the Torah. Nonetheless, once God commanded us to obey, we are able to understand their rationale. They are acceptable to the human mind and comprehended by the intellect. Now, one of these things that we would never have arrived at without the Torah, but once we understand it, then we understand it, and that is concerning clean and unclean meats, which for a long time, these were under the category of statutes, which we'll define in a minute, but they now moved into the places of testimonies because the Almighty testified of these things and said some things he created as garbage disposals. Don't eat them. They are abominable flesh. Now, there's nothing wrong with the animal, like dogs and cats and rats and lizards and pigs. They all have their place. The bottom feeders, the catfish, they all have their place. They keep the waters clean, the land clean, so that the clean animals don't end up being unclean animals. And this is why we have so much problem today with mercury and all sorts of poison in the flesh of good fish, because they are taking hundreds of tons of these scavengers, shrimp, out of the ocean every single day. And so the oceans are becoming polluted, and the fish that are clean are now becoming contaminated because of people eating the garbage disposals. These little shrimp, these things that are perfect garbage disposals, they're eating these by the hundreds of tons every day. And so now the clean animals are becoming unclean and unfit for human consumption because we have violated this. And so yet we understand, now we understand on the molecular level what happens in the human body when things that the Almighty calls abominations are taken into the human body. They hurt us, they damage on the molecular and cellular level, and so now science is caught up. Now, statutes are commandments entirely above and beyond our understanding. We do not know why we are to observe these commandments, but if you walk in my commandments indicates that we should obey all the commandments, whether we understand their rationale or not. And this is what it's talking about. You teach these statutes, these things that people wouldn't understand otherwise, like, why is it a double portion on the 6th day and you don't carry it over? Well, that's a statute. We don't know why, except that he says to do it, and when we do it, we get the benefit. When we obey, then blessings come. When we disobey, then we do not get the blessings. And that's why the American churchianity is in such a bad place, that the Christian population in America, the divorce rate is higher than the world of unbelievers. Why? Is because we're living under a curse. Violating the law brings a curse. You violate the law, and a curse is on you. You are under the law, you have a curse upon you. Whereas if you keep the Torah, the instructions and the statutes, then you live in the blessings. This has been completely turned around by completely asinine logic applied to numbered soundbite, completely wrestled out of the context of the scriptures, and we're seeing it. That's why Christians are dropping dead of diseases kosher Jews don't get. This is why Christians get divorced more often than rank unbelievers, atheists. Why? Because we know, we have the word, we hold the truth, but the truth does not hold us. We are holding the truth in unrighteousness. That is the definition of modern churchianity. Holding the truth in unrighteousness. Because sin is the violation of the Torah, according to John. In this church age, if you please, you want to be dispensational about it, you can have your dispensations. Because in this church age, violating the Torah, that is sin. And if you sin, then you are in big, big trouble, especially those who deliberately sin. Then it's evident that you're not really his. He's not you. You're a liar. The truth is not in you if you don't keep the commandments. And some people deliberately break the commandments. So the truth is not in them. It's so far from them. Now, let's continue on here because we're talking about these statutes. Moreover, in verse 21, you shall provide out of the people able men. This is what he is saying to, Yitro is saying to Moshe. Okay? You are going to be the one that teaches them directly from the Almighty, but you provide out of all the people able men, men that fear God, they respect God, they will keep his commandments, men of truth. Those who hate covetousness. So, they have to be of a certain age and a certain position where they're not always wanting something else from someone else, because you put those people in Congress, or in the Sanhedrin or in the ruling body of Israel. And what they'll do, they'll legislate everything away from everyone else. They will keep giving themselves raises. They'll work for 4 years and demand a paycheck the rest of their life. These are men of filth and covetousness, and we have great examples. This is what the United States is finally degraded to. Okay, it's nothing but a house of prostitution in Washington, D.C. nowadays. So he's saying, you've got to find able men. They fear God, will keep his commandments. They are true men. They hate covetousness. Then you place them over the people to be rulers over thousands and rulers over hundreds, rulers over 50s and rulers over 10. And so you've got a chain of command put in place here. And he said, and let them judge the people all the time, every season, all time, and every great matter that they shall bring to you, but the small matters they're able to judge. Now it's going to be easier for you, and then you're going to be able to bear all the burden. And so if you do this, and listen, and if God commands you to do so, then you will be able to endure. And all these people also will go to their place in peace. So Moses listened to the voice of his father-in-law, Yitro, did all that he said, and he chose the able men out of Israel and made them heads over the people, rulers over thousands, hundreds, 50s, 10s. And they judged the people at all seasons, as it says in King James, all the time. The hard causes they brought to Moses, but the small matters they judged themselves. And so Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way into his own land. Moses is now appointing these people, so it can be good on one hand, but it can be bad on another, and it gets downright ugly when you don't have the right people in place. That's the good, when you have good men who are taking a stand, fighting the good fight, who stand with the standard that was put up by Yitro. If you find these men, and then the Almighty selects them and puts his spirit on them. If this is what you've got, then things are good. But as it tells us in Proverbs 29:2, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked are elected, the people mourn. When people, and this is what we see. I mean, people that were elected, and it's proven. I mean, now the mass media's come out and say these people lied. They just are lying. They have lied to the American people, and it's like most people, they don't care. Because they promised me a handout, I don't care. Let them lie all they want, as long as they give me what I want. Covetousness, it doesn't matter. In Exodus 23, it tells us, thou shalt not raise up a false report. You will not put your hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. You will not follow the multitude to do evil. Neither, and this is like Congress and the Senate, okay? We got so many people following the multitude, doing evil so that they can get their hand in the pot. Neither will you speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment. So, you're going to go along with the majority to twist judgment. Neither shall you countenance a poor man in his cause. Just because a man is poor doesn't make him right. And then it says in verse 8, and you shall take no gift, because the gift blinds the wise and perverts the words of judgment. So this is the bad. When you have these kind of people in positions of authority, then things go bad, and they can go really bad. It will take the entire nation down. But the people get the king they deserve. Not necessarily the one they think they're voting for. They get the king that they deserve. You raise an entire generation to believe that there is no God, then they end up, they don't want the king that they get, but they get the king they deserve, because now they've got a king who is crooked, who will lie, who will steal, he'll do anything, and as long as he keeps giving it to the people let him do it, because they're covetous. So they get the king they deserve. In 1 Samuel, please turn to 1 Samuel, very important lesson, chapter 2. Now, the sons of Eli, and Eli was there at the tabernacle at I can see it in my mind. We'll be there in our tours. We always take Shiloh. At Shiloh, that's where the tabernacle was for 400 years. The sons of Eli, the high priest, were sons of Belial. The Belial means absolutely worthless. His sons were absolutely worthless individuals. Now, how can you say that about people? Because this is how the Almighty judges some people. They're worthless. They are the scum of the earth. It would have been better for them never to have been born, for them to have a millstone hung about their neck and drown in the depth of the sea. Ladies and gentlemen, that's just life. There are absolute twisted perverts that the sooner they're dead, the better. Okay? Oh yeah, all the news media had such glowing things to say about Chavez down in Venezuela. Man, the tragic thing about his death, it didn't happen 40 years before. That's what was tragic about it. How many Christians, how many believers did he kill down there? I was going to go down to Venezuela because, and they said, please don't, because you may and probably will survive, but they know when we get together and we are being killed. Oh, you know, we don't hear about that in the news media. No, we hear what an eloquent oratory was. Oh, who cares about what an eloquent oratory was? The man murdered people. He destroyed an entire nation, pocketed $2 billion, and the mass media in America has nothing but good things to say about him. I'll tell you what a whorehouse the mass media is in America. Oh, and some people are going to write, oh, I don't like all the yelling he does. Michael Root, he yells too much. Why? Because there's something important to say. How about the people that yell at a football game? You get, oh, I don't like all the yelling at a football game. Oh, you lip-wristed, weak-minded. If something's important, it needs to be emphasized. And if you don't like what's being emphasized, turn the channel. Thank you very much. So they were worthless individuals. They knew not Yahovah. These are the sons of Eli. And the priest custom with the people in that day was that when any man offered a sacrifice, the priest servants came, and while the flesh was seething, while it was in the flesh pots boiling, with a flesh hook of 3 teeth in his hand, he stuck it into the pan and the kettle and the cauldron, and what came out, that's what the priest took for himself. So they did this in Shiloh, and all the Israelites that came there, and before they burned the fat, because that's what had to be done, the fat had to be burned on the altar, that was to the Almighty. But then the priest servants came and said to the man, the sacrifice, give us raw flesh for the priest, because they don't want it sodden, they want it raw. And if any man said, well, let them not fail to burn the fat immediately, and then they would take as much as their soul desired. But then they'd answer, no, you give it, all of it to us now. And if not, we're going to take it by force. This is what the priest servants did. Said, we're going to take it by force. You give us what we want. They were changing the remuneration of the priest. See, the priests were to live on a tenth. The people gave a tenth, a tithe, and this is what they lived on, so that they could do, their work, the work of the ministry. But then they started to take it away from them by force. They come out with these things, well, did the Lord tell me to tell you about the miracle of the $1,000 seed, that if you borrow $1,000 from your great-grandmother and sow it into this ministry, that you're going to be multiplied 10,000 times 10,000? Did the Lord tell me? That is what is being taken by force. Manipulation, that is witchcraft, ladies and gentlemen. And it says that because they changed the remuneration, because they were doing this, they abhorred the offering of Yahovah. The people said, this is getting ugly. Now we get into the ugly part. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 22. Now Eli was very old, and he heard all that his sons did to Israel, how they lay with the women that assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. The women came up to minister to the Lord, to bring the offerings, and what are they doing? They're taking them in the back tent. And see, if Jesus nailed thou shalt not commit adultery to the cross, if thou shalt not commit adultery, and thou shalt not sexual lewdness or that which is unauthorized in the Torah, if all that's been nailed to the cross, this is what these guys did. These wicked sons of Belial, these worthless scum who are the sons of the priest, they were the ones that were doing this. Men's wives who come up, they take them in the back tent. We're dealing with this in 2 Timothy chapter 3. You need to memorize this. For of this sort are those false ministers who have a form of godliness but deny the power thereof. And it says, who creep into houses. But really, creep, the word creep is they intimate themselves into houses. Well, where is the church? Well, we hear all about it. The church is in the home. The assembly of believers is in the home. So they stealthily enter into the congregations in the homes, and they lead captive silly women. Well, it's not these lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts. The King James is so difficult here. They seduce and capture innocent young girls. These so-called ministers who sneak into the assembly, seducing these young girls, they are the ones who are laden with sins. They are the ones who are led away with diverse lust. Find my place here in Colossians here. Ever learning, verse 7, and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. These are these so-called ministers. They also oppose the truth, verse 8. They are men of depraved minds, reprobate concerning the faith. Oh, they pretend to be ministers. Hey, I was in one of these cults. And they said, well, King David wasn't doing anything wrong. Every woman in the kingdom belonged to him. So now the leader of this religious organization decides that all the women in the organization now belong to him. It doesn't matter whether they're married. It doesn't matter if they're 40 to 50 years younger than he is. No, he turns into an absolute depraved, debauched sex maniac. And this is what's going on. In every denomination out there, at the top you get to absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now, this is where it really gets ugly, when you get evil men who are absolutely worthless slime, reprobate concerning the faith, who do not obey the commandments, who come up with a new religion, the new grace religion, in which grace is a license to do whatever you want to do, instead of the biblical definition is grace is the empowerment to live a holy, a righteous, a godly life in the middle of a sick, twisted, and perverse world. That is what grace is. They twist grace into a license so they can do anything they want to do because it's all been nailed to the cross of Jesus. And now they can be an absolute debauched, pedophile pervert and somehow it's okay. No, they're going directly to hell. They will not pass go. They will not collect $200. In Matthew 20, the mother of Zebedee's children, James and John, came to Yeshua and worshiped him. And he said, "Woman, what do you want?" And she said, oh, Master, grant that my son here, that my two sons get to sit in your right hand and left hand when you enter your kingdom. And Yeshua said, you have no idea what you're asking. James, John, get in here. Are you able to drink of the cup that I'm going to drink of? Are you able to be baptized with the baptism I'm going to be baptized with? And they said, yes, Master, we're able. And he said, okay, you're on, boys. You're going to drink the cup I'm going to drink with. You're going to be baptized with the baptism of suffering and pain I will be baptized with. But to sit on my right hand, left hand, you can forget it. It will be given to those to whom it is prepared of my Father. And it says, when the 10 heard it, they were moved with indignation against the two brothers. Why? Once you take up the right and left hands of Yeshua, then what do you have left? The right and left hand of James, the right and left hand of John. When those two positions are filled up, then what do you have the next? Now you got the College of Cardinals. Now you've got the bishops. And then finally you get down to where all excrement rolls downhill. You get down to the laity, to the people at the bottom of the heap. He said, you know that the princes of the Gentiles, you know, the rulers of the Gentiles, they exercise dominion over the people. And in Greek, it is, you know, Nico is conqueror, the people is laity. You know, this is a Nicolaitan structure, and this is how the world does it. And those that are great exercise authority and power over the people. But this is not how it's going to be among you. Let those who want to be the minister, who want to be great, he is going to be the one who ministers to everyone. You get it and turn it upside down. Whoever wants to be the chief, the number one, let him be your servant. In other words, you get underneath and you serve as many people as possible. That's how you're great in my kingdom. Because, listen, I didn't come into the world to be ministered to. I'm like, you know, the Messiah, you know, the Son of the living God. If anyone deserves to everyone to be kissing his feet, it's me. But I came to give my life. And if you want to do it, this is the way it's going to be done in my kingdom. If you want to do this thing with the Pope at the top of it, pack your trash, Peter, and head to Rome. Because this is not how it's done in my kingdom. Because it gets ugly when you've got it turned upside down, and now this is a man serving, and now nothing applies to him except what he wants to apply. You get evil at the top, and the evil all rolls downhill. Yeshua said, this you've got going for you in Revelation 2:15. You have those that hold the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, the conquerors of the people. I hate it. Twice in the book of Revelation, I hate it. The doctrine and the deeds of the Nicolaitans, because they exercise authority and dominion over each other. Everything rolls downhill. They serve no one, and they want to be served. And this is the ugly part of what happens if you have people in responsibility and it's turned upside down to where they are not righteous, and they want to be the head and they want to be served instead of serving the people. And that is how Yeshua wants it to be done in his kingdom. And we better get it straight and turn it around now before it's too late. I'd like to now leave you with this blessing. Yivarechecha Yahovah vayishmerecha. Yair Yahovah panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Yahovah panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. B'shem Yeshua HaMashiach Sar Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Lehitrot, Shavua Tov. I'll see you next week on Shabbat Night Live.